Welcome to the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi After the Show podcast.
Every once in a while, I'll get texts from friends. Hey, what are you watching? What can we binge? What's the recommendation? You always want a recommendation because you don't want to spend your, precious recreational time watching something that's not worth it.
You know how many things I've started that you get like 2 minutes in and it's like, nah, next.
Not for me.
But that's good. At least you can move on. I guess the biggest time waste is when you spend the first 30 minutes just scrolling.
Are you
like,
kidding?
I don't want to watch that. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, proof that there's too much because I've done it where it's like, what did you watch? Nothing. I just searched and gave up. Turned it off and cleaned up the kitchen.
Yeah.
I think part of that is the fact that, when you go on Prime or any of those, you just see what's on the
Netflix,
face.
Max.
Whatever the little thumbnails they have up there. Whereas, like, if you're looking for a certain movie, you have to do the search to dig deeper, is what I'm saying.
You're right.
There's a lot of times it's like, I'd really like to watch blah, blah, blah. I don't know which service it's on. And you start looking and it's like,
then you forgot
it's
what
not
you were
here. But it's like, it could be if you look.
Or something else has been served up to you that grabs you. And that's the world we live in. Things are served up. So right now, today, for the After the Show podcast, we'll serve up what we've kind of been watching. Sam, you told me a little bit about something you're binging, and I wanted to do this here because I know Murphy's going to want to watch this. And we can watch it together at home. Right?
There's two things I'm binging right now. The one I told you about it's called Mafia's Greatest Hits. Get it? And each episode's about 50 minutes, and each episode is about a different mafia person. Bugsy Siegel, John Gotti, Sam Giancana.
Wow.
And it takes you through how they started, how they got involved, and then at the end, it's whether they lived out their life or got whacked.
This is the story of the man who put the organized into organized crime.
One man changed the whole texture and landscape of crime in America. There's no question that Luciano invented the modern mafia.
Lucky Luciano.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So it's like the OG of true crime.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones where they do it's a docu-series, but it's like they have the vintage stuff, but then they have the actors that are, acting out certain
the
scenes.
reenactments.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do they talk about the Mafia Museum in Las Vegas at all?
The episodes I've seen so far, no. It's
Jodi,
just like specific mobsters.
Yeah, Jodi and I took that tour a couple of years ago, and it's really fascinating.
Cool.
It's a 3-story building that it's in, and you go through literally from Lucky Luciano all the way through, and it really is fascinating, the things that tie together. The story is told. I guess you have a better perspective on the story when it's told the way that you're describing, whether it's a Netflix series like this or you go from start to finish to see how it evolved and how it really never always turned out great. You know what I'm saying?
It usually doesn't.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese says that. All these crime and mafia stories that he has chosen to tell, he's not trying to glorify it.
Right.
He's saying, yes, it seems glitzy. Yes, it was for certain people the American dream, but look where it ends up.
Yeah.
Look what happens. It always falls apart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's where the actual real story is.
This covers like mob stories in Chicago, mob stories in New York, the Vegas aspect, and also Cuba too, because Cuba, they used to have the casinos and all that before Castro. So it talks about how the mob moved into that and then got kicked out of that.
Yeah.
So how many have you, I'm sorry, Murphy, how many have you watched?
I've watched about 5 or 6 of them. There's some that the titles don't appeal to me,
Okay.
like The King of Heroin, and it's like I don't really care.
Oh, okay.
Or just they're different stories. I clicked on the ones about the people you know,
Bugsy
Meyer
Siegel?
Lansky, Bugsy Siegel, all those.
Bugsy Siegel's an interesting one to me.
Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting to me that prohibition in the U.S. really fueled the mafia. It was because
Why not?
the moment you had something that was legal that became outlawed that everybody wanted to consume, alcohol, then you had this new market, this
heyday
underground
for
market.
them.
Yeah. And it just really sped up the growth of the mafia.
One of the cool stories that they talk about in here, and I've seen this on other series, is about how the CIA was talking to the mafia about getting rid of Castro in Cuba and how it all comes back and kind of ties into the Kennedy assassination. It's just like, whoa, it'll blow your mind. There's so many connections.
Yeah, and I don't know that one's ever going to be solved. I mean, I know that there's a lot of stuff that's supposed to be unsealed regarding the Kennedy assassination win, and I forget which year it is. It's 75 years after the end of the case. We may not be alive when it comes out, but anyway.
But when it's unsealed, there's a lot of the documents on some of these shows they show, but they're redacted. So it's like they unsealed a whole bunch of things in 2017, but they show the sheets, and it's like, and the killer was. Come on!
Right? Yeah.
That's not exactly how it's going to go down. The killer was, but yes.
The other series I'm looking at right now is because they just started season 6 is FBI True. That's on Paramount. By the way, the Mafia series is on Prime, Amazon Prime,
and it's called. I want you to tell me the name of it again.
Mafia's Greatest Hits.
Mafia's Greatest Hits. Okay.
And FBI True. There's 2 series on Paramount. FBI True and PD True, which covers stories from local police departments. But FBI True,
wow.
They cover the Versace murder and the Scream Bandits and the Pizza Bomber. Each one is something on that. Here's a little bit.
As FBI agents, we're expected to find the truth. It's like a 10,000-piece puzzle, but you don't have the pieces.
Everybody's just hyper-focused on making sure that they do the job.
Murder, drugs, organized crime.
James Whitey Bulger, one of the most infamous mobsters.
I tell you, this case had everything.
This series is really cool because it's an FBI they're all former FBI agents.
Okay.
And they all worked on the case. They'll talk to 2 agents who have worked on whatever the case is they're covering. And there's an FBI agent that's doing the interviews. So they're all sitting, and it's usually like casual in a bar, and they're drinking beer. And it's like, tell me about the story. So you get the FBI person that was doing the lead investigating is the one telling the story. So you get all kind of behind-the-scenes stuff. That one's really cool.
Yes, a lot to learn there, I'm sure.
And it's on Paramount, so I get commercials.
That's okay.
Bummer.
Okay. This is, I'm going to just say, what you're binging sounds like true crime, but with a little more credibility.
Yeah.
Than so-and-so's neighbor killed her husband.
Yeah,
right?
It's a little different because I had to lay off that true crime for a minute.
Yeah.
But this is
If you consume too much true crime, the kind that I was just giving the example of, you kind of start to feel bad about humanity.
Yeah.
You do, but these 2 seem to have a little bit of credibility. And going back when Murphy first met me, I don't know how soon I told you, I explained to you my Mafia movie thing, but I definitely have it. I think I'm the one that showed you Goodfellas.
You were. You
Goodfellas.
introduced me to Goodfellas.
One of my favorite movies of all time is Bugsy. It's Warren Beatty and Annette Bening. They met on the set of that movie. Then they got married. They really connected in playing those 2. And it's so beautifully done. It's such a beautiful movie. Now, it's about, him.
And it's got the real ending.
Origins of Las Vegas.
Which is still, to me, that in and of itself, when you look at all the origins of Las Vegas, that's
coming
how
together.
It started. That's where the investment money came from that built the foundation of, the 1900s version of Vegas.
So I will say that I recommend the movie Bugsy, but it's not Goodfellas. Bugsy is also a little bit of a love story.
Yeah.
It's definitely got that aspect, but it's beautifully made. And I want to say they got every car right, every home interior right, every costume right. I'm a woman. I pay attention to details like that. So when I watch something like that, I'm like, oh my God, look at her dress. Look at that bracelet. Look at that picture on the wall. I kind of notice everything. And that's one reason I love it, because it's really beautiful.
Well, Bugsy's house, the one where he met his end. It's a real house. It's still in Beverly Hills. And I looked at it on the map, and it's like, when we went a couple years ago, we were like 3 blocks from it.
What?
We could have walked over there and seen Bugsy Siegel's house.
We should have done some research before we went there.
Yeah.
What is wrong with us? Okay, so thank you for the recommendations, Sam. I will say I want to just throw out my friend who asked me, hey, what's something good to binge? And I mentioned it in the show once a week ago or something like that. But I could not get enough of the Strike show. It's made by the BBC. It's called CB Strike, and it's based on some books.
My name is Cormoran Strike. Wondered if we could have a quick chat.
You're not a cop.
I was. Royal Military Police.
Okay, so this is fiction. These are books I could not wait to get my hands on every time they come out. I think there are 7 books. I've read them all. The 8th book comes out later this year. They're written by Robert Galbraith, and if you know a little bit about that, it's J.K. Rowling writing under a different pen name. Every time these books come out, I'm salivating for them. I can't wait for them, and I read and so anyway, I found out about the series and I binged it so quick and hard. And it's really well made.
Are all the books about this guy, CB Strike?
Yes.
Okay.
And every
so it's
book,
a continuing series.
He's a private investigator. He takes on a partner, and it's them investigating cases in and around London. And it's very intelligent. You're not going to be able to guess who the killer is.
Is it set today or back in the day?
It's set today.
Oh,
it's really, really
sounds
good.
like fun.
And I will say this, Murphy, I don't know if you noticed that I pulled the books off the shelf these are not e-readers for me. I buy the books and hold them and touch them and open them. And so I finished watching one of my favorites, which was called Lethal White. It's just one of the books, one of the cases. And I pulled it off the shelf just to reread the ending to see how, I remember thinking, watching it, are they so close? Are they doing exact? Because so often a show or a movie will not follow a book exactly.
Yeah.
Well, J.K. Rowling is involved in the filming of this show, and it is exactly. The only things that they leave out are what the characters are thinking, because you can't really always get that from something on a screen.
Yeah.
So I recommend CB Strike. The show is called CB Strike.
I see her as being a perfectionist on that. Well, that kind of fits along with the true crime genre, even though it's not true crime.
It's fiction crime,
Yeah.
but
it's
it
fiction
feels
crime.
like it could be. It's believable stuff. It's not. Harry Potter's not whipping out the wand.
Yeah. The the allure of the mafia stuff I don't think will ever go away either, or the storytelling. Even if you've studied any history at any time, most of the central mafia figures over that time period.
Yeah.
But there always seems to be some new angle or something, and maybe it's just so far out there. Like Jodi was saying a second ago, the combination of the glitz of it, which is funny, it really wasn't glitz, but they, when the mafia types were living large, like a Bugsy Siegel.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think isn't that what contributed to his early death too? As he became very flamboyant with
he was
the
drawing too much
flamingo
attention.
Right, exactly.
A lot of these guys wind up on the wrong side of the bullet because they're attracting too much attention.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Wow.
And on the FBI true story thing that you were talking about, it mentioned Whitey Bulger. Isn't Whitey Bulger the central character, or that's The Departed's based on?
I think maybe.
The
That
fictionalized Frank Costello?
I'd have to Google it, but I think so.
Yeah.
And I could not believe that when we first watched The Departed, and that's another movie that we were like, wow, let's watch that again, because there's so much to it and it's so well made. It's based on a person who was a true crime figure in America, but it's also The Departed based on a foreign film too, where it was like two undercovers going after each other, because that's basically what happens.
Yeah.
They both know
that's
they
the
exist.
dynamic in that movie that's really interesting.
And they're trying to find each other, and they can't.
On the Mafia's Greatest Hits, I'll tell you which one to start with. Donnie Brasco.
Okay.
I know there was a movie, Donnie Brasco.
Love it.
But it's the real story. Donnie Brasco was an undercover police officer. That wasn't his real name, but I can't remember his real name, but he's the one who tells this whole story. It's the guy. He's still alive when they made this, and he tells about he spent 6 years undercover, and he was this close to being a made man in the mafia. And
Oh my God.
when they pulled him out because he was getting too dangerous. And speaking of the danger, Murphy, this is what you like. His capo captain who brought him into the mob and vouched for him. Once they realized this guy was an undercover agent, he was bringing everybody down. Well, then the mob started going after everybody that brought him into the mob. So they got his captain. They went
Like
after
dominoes.
2 or 3 other people that he worked with. It's like, you guys all brought him in here, pop, 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 kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, the guy that was his capo, that episode starts with him walking into a bar, giving the bartender his wad of cash, his rings, his gun, and saying, "Hold those for me. I don't think I'm coming back."
Oh.
And I won't tell you what happened.
Okay.
But that's a good one, Danny Brasco.
Recommendations: Mafia's Greatest Hits,
Yeah.
FBI True,
And PD True.
and for fiction, CB Strike. That one is on Max.
Missed any part of the show? Get it all on the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi podcast.